Welcome everybody to today's web class. We're teaching our 5 favorite customer experience strategies. And it's not customer experience. I hate buzzwords. They drive me nuts. Jargon drives me nuts. I rant about that every so often too. But these are, what we do like is results. We like growing businesses for people. We like helping people who are afraid of downsizing or keeping the lights on in their business, grow their business, hire more people, change more lives. So these are customer experience strategies to systematically grow your business, increase revenue, and retain customers. So before we begin, I want to introduce our content leaders today. I'm going to turn it over to Amy Looper to kind of give her background and why this is an important topic for her.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Looper. I am the founder of Relativity Sells. And I started my consultancy a little over a year ago after spending the first 15 plus years of my career really in sales leadership roles and in tech sales roles. And the reason why I have this affinity for customer experience is because it's not just one person's job. Like, it's not just one person in sales. It's not one person in marketing. It's not one person in the company to really, make a number. It's all about the collective effort of engaging with your customer, right? Understanding what your customer needs are, and then flexing how you're meeting them at different buying points to really serve them. And it's really that outward focus that I think is so important for customers to think about, because all of us that are in technology, whether you're in technology services, if you're offering a product, or if you're with one of the big box brands, it's really cutthroat competition out there. And so how can you really effectively serve when there's so much noise? And these are some of the ways that you can do it. So I'm really excited to talk about that today.
Thanks, Amy. I'm excited that we're doing this together. My name is Josh Paul. I run a consultancy that helps people who are using the HubSpot platform increase sales, optimize their sales process, turn more leads into revenue. But that's not what we're talking about today. Earlier on in my career, I worked in a lot of software companies, a lot of startups or middle-aged startups. And one of the things that I noticed as I was running marketing or some part of sales for these companies was the founders would get incredibly frustrated because they created a better product. We have the best product on the market. It is so much better than everybody else out there. A lot of times there was this arch nemesis company that you're always going head to head with, and our product is so much better. And what we realized over time and what we had to understand as a leadership team was that it wasn't about the product. It wasn't, the product is important. It needs to solve a problem that people are willing to pay to have solved, but it was the customer experience. It was everything from how they interacted with you at trade shows, back when we were doing trade shows, to their experience online, their experience with the sales team, to onboarding and turning them into advocates. So the entire customer life cycle was just as valuable as the buttons on the screen. And that's where my passion for this comes from, because it's those levers that, you hear the term customer experience all the time, but not a lot of people are taking action on it. So those of you who are on this webinar today are getting secrets that if you take action on them, it can really differentiate you in your market. So let's get into it. There we go. All right. Anybody here ever been to the Inbound conference? This is, we've heard about customer experience for a while. The Inbound conference is a giant 25,000 person conference in Boston every year. It's put on by HubSpot, but there's a lot of different software vendors there. And I've been going for 11 years, 12 years. And in 1999, the last time we were there as a full group, because they had it virtually last year, this is a blurry screen grab of the founder of HubSpot, Brian Halligan, giving his keynote. It's always one of my favorite parts of the conference, because there's deep dive sessions and celebrity keynotes, but I like hearing the perspective of the two HubSpot co-founders. It's been my favorite session for over a decade. And he talked about the concept of why you win is how they buy. And he walked through several examples, and we'd heard about customer experience for a long time, but this really put it into perspective for me. And that's what I want to hit home with you all today, that why does it matter? Because it's not just about your product. It's not just about your market. It's about the way that somebody buys is why you're going to win. Case in point, what do these four companies have in common? They're in very different industries. They provide very different services. I'm not a big fan of using big companies as an example for things, because most of us don't work for big companies and don't have all of that funding and all of that brand recognition. But in this case, it works. Amy, what do you see here in these four companies?
Well, I think all of these companies are very focused on their customer, right? You think about the Ritz-Carlton. I worked for a senior living company, one of the beginning positions of my career, and we actually did the Ritz-Carlton training. And it was all about, responding a certain way to customers, really acknowledging them, asking for feedback along each interaction. And I think, all of these companies do that as well. Netflix, great example of how they leverage technology and making sure that they are really creating that online user experience that is friendly, very, low barrier to entry, and make it very easy to do business with them long term. And in fact, I've often forgotten that I pay for Netflix month after month after month.
Right. It's almost a joy to do so. Hailing a taxi is a lot different experience, gives you anxiety a lot of times. Calling your Uber and just waiting for them to pick you up is seamless. It's almost an extension of you. These are companies that are not in the same space at all, and sometimes they do very mundane things, like Warby Parker provides glasses. But the way that they do it, not only from the way that you select your glasses, the way they're shipped to you, the way you can ship them back, but the experience once you do buy something and how they treat you afterwards is exceptional. And so the reason these companies, one of the primary reasons these companies have grown to the heights that they have is because they've been meticulous about their customer experience.
Yeah, buying glasses online. Who knew that we could just take a 3D picture, right, and have them fitted? We did that for my daughter who's 6, and it worked perfectly. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was seamless. You kind of in your head, you say, well, that worked so well, I don't need to buy glasses anywhere else ever again.
Right.
In fact, I'm going to talk about it to my friends and on a webinar with all these good folks. So when you guys think of customer experience, who do you think of? Who do you think of as a good customer experience? Is it Harley? Is it Disney? Is it somebody local to you? Drop it in the, what do we have? We have a Q&A panel or a chat panel, if you have access to that. Sometimes I don't set up the technology exactly right on these webinars, but who do you think of when you think of an example of kind of top-notch customer experience? Oh,
Josh, you got a shout out.
I know. We're working on. So in the chat, Gabby mentioned my company, and we're a small company. We don't have a lot of resources, but what it points out is that you all, as smaller companies, have a tremendous opportunity to compete with larger companies on customer experience. The Warby Parker wasn't always that big, but they differentiated themselves not through, they don't use better glass than another company. It's not features that they're competing on. They compete on customer experience, and this is something that all of us can do. All right, this is some real quick data on what is important for people, because customer experience, jargon, buzzwords, all that stuff, you can kind of get lost. You're like, yeah, what does that really mean? So I wanted to put this up here so that you can see some of the things, some of the levers that you have access to when you're driving customer experience: efficiency, convenience, friendly service, the tone you use. We use a lot of video. I'm not very good at video, but we use a lot of video because it matters. And me fumbling through a video, can be more friendly than the 99th email they got that day from everybody else. Is there anything on here that sticks out to you, Amy?
I think creating those unique experiences is really important. Obviously, efficiency and convenience and all those things are important, but I think when you go back and you survey your customers, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and how to do that, you'll often find that it comes back to a unique experience that they had with someone in your company with a particular onboarding process or experience, et cetera, that they just haven't had before. And so that helps them to remember you and to say, wow, I want to refer my friends. I want to come back and, really engage as a loyal long-term customer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for those of you who don't like joining webinars where there's just basic theory and strategy and information like that, this isn't going to be one of those. We're gonna get into some very tactical, actionable things, but some of you may be well versed in living in customer experience every day. For those people, your takeaway from this webinar is going to be different. If you're kind of, you wear 20 hats and customer experience is one of them, your experience is, you're going to have some very tactical things to take away. If you are living in customer experience every day, I hope this webinar gives you permission and validation for some of the things that you're thinking, because sometimes that's what you need, especially when the rest of the company doesn't understand the importance of customer experience. So let's get into the 5 strategies that are going to make the biggest difference in 2021 in your customer experience. First one, customer journey mapping. So here we go again with the jargon, but it's not jargon. It is a customer journey map is such an effective tool. You got to get past the fact that it has 3 words in it that you could mix around and it could mean nothing, but it does mean something. This is an example of a customer journey map. It's a very basic example, but across the top, you have the stages that a customer goes through, and then you're going to map what are the interactions that the customer has. So why create a customer journey map? Let's get into that. All right. Let me see. Do I have that there? Okay, we're going to get into it next. All right, so you guys understand stages across the top, interactions that your company has, interactions that the buyer has, and the mindset that the buyer is in along the way. It seems so simple, but like 99% of companies don't do this and don't maintain it. And so let's get into what goes into the map. So primarily, you want buyer mindset. What are they feeling? What are their emotions? What are their fears? And then you want to say, what actions do they take? Do they convert on a lead magnet? Do they book a meeting on your website with your sales team? And then on the flip side, what are the touches that your team has with them? And I recommend doing 2 maps. One is today, and then so awareness, consideration, purchase, onboarding, in program. This is for a specific coaching type industry, consultant type industry. So your stages are going to be different, but I recommend building your map as it is today, the good, bad, and the ugly. Try to resist going, well, this should be this, so let's put that there. So you're going to build your map today because that's going to help you identify where the gaps are, and we're going to get into that. The buyer mindset, you're just doing a brainstorm. You're trying to get inside the buyer's head. I have a great buyer mindset mapping process that I can share with you if you reach out to me, to get inside your buyer's head at different places in this process. When they're first becoming aware of their problem, what are their fears? What are their goals? What are their priorities? When they're considering different solutions, what are they afraid of? Are they afraid of getting misinformation from a sales rep? Are they afraid of paying too much? during the purchase process? Are they afraid of do they have internal pressure not to spend too much budget? You need to understand all of those mindset elements. The buyer actions. Are they scheduling a demo? Are they purchasing online? What actions are they taking? And then what are they hearing from your team? What actions is your team taking to interact with them? What are the calls to action that you're asking them to take to move further down the buying process? Okay, so the primary are buyer mindset, buyer actions, and team touches. The secondary, because the buyer mindset or customer journey maps can get pretty complicated, you can have additional, back up here, additional rows below this once you have the primary ones done that cover, all right, what is the lead management data? So what is changing in your CRM as somebody moves through the process? What kind of automation are you using at different points in the process? You need that primary core set first, but then you can come in below, and that's when you really get to enhance it. What is the messaging at each stage? What is the content that you have available to serve them and help them in the buying process? And then what are the metrics to know that you are crushing it at each stage in the customer journey map? Okay, so how to use it? Why is this important? You're going to use your customer journey map to be strategic about your tactics. Without your customer journey map, you're just throwing things at the wall. Can anybody relate to that? Give me a thumbs up or whatever you can give me in the chat. If you can relate to, I'm so busy, we're just throwing things at the wall and it doesn't quite, I know we could be doing better. Customer journey map grounds your entire strategy to be more strategic about your tactics. Your tactics still matter, but you're able to look at it top down and attack it in a methodical way. So in every decision that you make, you're able to take the big picture into consideration, and you're able to prioritize better because you can say, I understand that we have a big hole later in the process, but we're going to prioritize the front end of our process first instead of jumping back and forth because everything's on fire. When you do make changes to your tactics and how you touch people and the steps that they need to take, you're going to understand the implications because you're able to see that big picture. You're going to be able to see the implications down the road, and you're going to be able to put metrics to things to measure them better. And then the most important thing on here is aligning the departments in your company and other employees to the journey that you're trying to take customers on. Lets them know this is well thought out. We do have a plan. And if you throw an idea out, I may not jump on that idea right away because we have this big picture that we need to take into consideration. And there is a master plan for the experience that we want customers to have. So let's talk about how to create a customer journey map. This is where these are your steps right here. So first, you're laying out those the touch points with starting with how a buyer finds you, how they get into your system, and their first conversion. What is their experience as they're researching and understanding their problem, as they're understanding your solution? What is their experience so far? What are the things that they're doing, and what are the touches that you are sending out to them? Is it email? Is it phone calls? Is it SMS messages? And then based on that, you're just doing a brain dump of the steps. We prefer a whiteboard. It's that low tech when it comes to creating your customer journey map. And then you're standardizing your stages. You're saying, all right, these are the things that happen. You're kind of weeding out the variable ones that don't happen very often and kind of the outlier situations. You're standardizing it so that you say, all right, this is what the journey that a majority of the customers are going to take. And in some customers who are in outlier flows right now, you are going to be able to, now that you have a journey map, bring them into the standard stages. So they probably went down a different path because you didn't have this map that was agreed upon and utilized by all groups. So then you're going to, so we have the touches, we have the standard stages. Then you're going to identify buyers' goals, pain points, priorities, and expectations at different stages. This is all going to go into that mindset row. But when we talk about mindset, sometimes you say, well, what is mindset? We're talking goals, priorities, pain points, expectations. What is the information they need at different points in the process? And then, so that's your customer journey map today. Okay, this is going to be filled in. And then you're going to be able to look at this in a way that you've never seen it before and see the gaps. You're going to say, you know what, this part of the process isn't very strong. There's opportunity here. And sometimes the opportunity isn't a big lift. It's not a big, it's low cost, it's low effort, but it's just because we've never seen it from this top-down view before. You're going to be able to fill in those gaps or at least make a plan to fill them in. Amy, do you want to just jump in? I know you have thoughts. We've talked about this for the past few weeks as we've planned this, but what's your experience in this area?
Yeah, so I think journey mapping can be simplified. I think it can also get very complex very quickly. With some of the customers I've been working with, we often we'll take the first couple of hours to do a workshop of just trying to find which journey we actually want to map, right? Because you oftentimes, even in smaller businesses, it may be really overwhelming to even map the whole thing right up front, and you may not even know which one to start with. So kind of starting with, what is the issue that you're trying to solve, right? Maybe you have a retention issue, maybe you have, hey, we're not converting leads issue, or whatever the case might be. Like starting with that and then starting to map out what that looks like and taking it in small snippets can be helpful, because then you can start to integrate things like the voice of the customer, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and really integrating all of that customer feedback throughout.
No, those are really good points. No, customer journey map is only good if it's not a one-time thing. This needs to be a living document. So I recommend designating an owner of the map. Somebody needs to own it, and it needs to be their job to maintain it. A single owner or a small group is best, rather than multiple people owning it, because multiple people own something, nobody's really going to take care of it. You need to educate your organization that this is a core document in how we work and how we're going to maintain a killer customer experience. You need to use it. It doesn't just sit in a drawer. When we make a decision, when we're planning out the third quarter and the fourth quarter, we're bringing out our customer journey map, and it's right there on the table or on the screen with us. And quarterly, I recommend reviewing it top to bottom. It doesn't need to be as big as the initial workshop process, but there needs to be designated time to make sure that something doesn't need to be adjusted, because we want to make sure that it stays pretty in line with your business today.
Excellent. So that brings us to how to integrate the voice of your customer. So why should we listen to our customers? I think we all know the importance of that, but we can skip ahead to the next slide if you can advance that, please. It is a known fact over the last couple of years. Obviously, consumers have more information than they ever have before, right? And some of you may be in the process of trying to implement a sales process called the challenger sale. A lot of my customers are doing that right now. A lot of big tech companies are trying to kind of shift out of that old solution selling model and getting into really understanding the different personalities within their sales team, as well as the customer personalities. And that's kind of done through Challenger right now. That's the current trend. And the authors of this book did a second study around customers, and what they found over the last few years of this study were that people are not even reaching out to vendors. Customers are not reaching out to vendors until over 57% of their actual purchase process has been completed. So even if you are in a smaller organization, maybe you're selling into like cybersecurity or something, especially in those oversaturated markets right now, it is so important to kind of get ahead of that. So we can do that through the voice of the customer. And if you can advance to the next slide. You can just keep clicking around, Josh. I'll let you just keep doing that. We won't worry about the actual order. Meeting and gathering gathering feedback from your customer at different stages is super important, right? So when they're just doing some research, maybe they're watching a video about something, maybe they're engaging in your website, your blog, whatever the case might be, engaging in asking for feedback or giving them a chance to make a comment and things like that during that awareness phase is really important. And then capturing, obviously analytics on the back end, who's visiting your website, who's visiting different things, so that you can make sure that you're engaging with them later on. Then when you're moving through the sales process, maybe you're demoing a solution, maybe you're demoing some sort of solution set or your services, et cetera. Gathering feedback around that process of what is a customer really looking for, I often times will coach salespeople in engaging these questions, not just because they want to get ahead in the sales process, but because we want to, as a vendor, understand why are our customers buying, and taking kind of that market research approach of understanding what they're seeing value in your solution, how they want to engage with you, and how do they want to purchase? Because now there's this phenomenon, right, of not just always purchasing in a traditional SaaS model, but product-led growth. Do we just want to try before we buy it in the freemium models, or do we want to engage in those ways? So it's important for you to gather that feedback. Procurement, you want to make it as easy as possible, obviously, to work with your customers. So gathering the post-sales feedback of how they're engaging with you is super important from that stage of procurement all the way through onboarding and the long-term support and engagement of whatever solution you're providing. And ultimately that really drives the customer feedback and their scoring in how easy it is to do business with you. We can move to the next slide.
So before my favorite ones on here are website content feedback and demo feedback. It's a missed opportunity in so many organizations because nobody else is doing it. And talk about ways to optimize that matter. But you have to do it right because your relationship isn't as strong at that point in the process.
Yeah, definitely. So, looking for, ways to really implement the voice of the customer strategy is more than just taking a survey. It's more than, making a call to your customer, having them involved in a customer journey mapping exercise. It's really having a strategy in place internally so that you can gather the right feedback and make sense of it. And that really starts with creating a goal. For an example, let's say you have a churn problem. Let's say that you're not meeting the industry standard of 95% customer retention. Perhaps you're at 85% customer retention. So let's just, in this example, say that your goal would be, okay, we need to look at that 10% mark and how can we really move the needle and close the gap on the customer churn rate. Is it the product that's the issue? Is it how we're addressing the market? Are we addressing the market, the right parts of the market? Are we not engaging correctly in the sales process? Maybe we're doing something there that's turning people off, during that process. Maybe we're not onboarding and we're getting in the initial sale, but we're not actually providing enough value post-sale to keep that customer long-term. And so after the year one or the 6 months or whatever the initial phase is, they're just dropping off and not coming back to us. That's a really big problem that can really diminish the valuation of your company long-term, right? So setting that goal initially is so important. Then you know where to collect the data, how to collect the data, and you can analyze what that feedback is from your customer, and then start drawing your own conclusions internally. And documenting those things and meeting about those things as a leadership team is so important. So that way you can make sure that you're setting the right next steps for remediation to close the metric. And the metric in this example would be to close that 10% gap in customer churn. Other ways that you can really put a number and a qualification to the voice of the customer would be different things like your NPS score, your net promoter score. How much is the customer actually going to promote you? And usually it's a number, anything over 0 is a good thing. They're promoting you in a good light, but anything over a 50, like a plus 50 number is really excellent. And anything over 70 points is phenomenal. So, those are some ranges there. When you're looking at CES score, the customer effort score, how much effort does the customer need to put in for an issue to be resolved? And I think this is huge, because if it's hard to do business with you, or it's hard to get a question answered, maybe you are doing managed services, and if the customer is not able to actually, get that service of their, whether it be service response times, or some sort of like a cyber incident remediated in a certain amount of time, that is a huge thing. So looking at that is important. And of course, all of that really goes into the CSAT, or the customer satisfaction score. And that is simply just taking a sampling of your customers and how many out of those customers are willing to give you a thumbs up, right? So 3 out of 4, you have a 75% customer satisfaction rating. As we get into some more nitty gritty, measurements, CLI is often used for customer loyalty. It's similar to the NPS score, but it really looks at how loyal are your customers, right? How often are they coming back to you for repeat purchases? And of course, as we look at creating more value with our customer from a revenue standpoint, that's very important, because we really want high customer lifetime value. That's obviously the goal, is to provide value, but obviously have that materialize into a revenue number that can be measured.
My favorite one on here is the customer effort score, because it gives you tangible levers that you can play with that make a big difference in customer satisfaction is a great metric, but sometimes you're like, all right, well, what led to it? Customer effort score is something that you can start tackling this week.
Totally.
All right. So strategy number 3, segmentation. Here was people are saying, well, segmentation's a strategy. Yes, segmentation is an amazing strategy. What does segmentation mean? Getting the right message to the right people at the right time. That's what we all want. That's why we open emails. That's why we return calls, because we are busy. We are focused on our priorities. We're only going to pay attention to the things that matter to us at that time. So we are all in segments every day. You see it on your device. You see it. This is an example. Amazon's a go-to example for this, where they understand what you're shopping for and when you're shopping for it, and they're serving you up the right products at the right time. And thanks to technology, you can do the same at your organization very, very easily. You don't need an Amazon level engine behind it, but just doing it a little bit can make a big difference. The flip side of that is stop sending people stuff that doesn't matter to them at that time. So getting the right message to the right people at the right time, and stop sending the wrong message to the wrong people at the wrong time. You get both of those benefits all in. It's a twofer, all in one. All right. What does this look like when it does not work? Have you guys ever been a customer of a company? I'm going to start from the middle here. Number 2, been a customer of a company, and you get a sales and marketing material from them, not to upgrade, not to extend your run with them, but like request a demo for us. Like, I've been a customer of yours for 2.5 years. Why am I getting an email from you to connect with our sales team? That is a segmentation fail more than anything else. One of the more nuanced ones that we see much more often is trying to pitch somebody, trying to get them into a sales conversation too early in the process. Through your demographic data, your behavioral data, when somebody is researching their problem and potential solutions. Going straight for the marriage proposal is a segmentation fail more than anything else. It could be a strategic fail, but often it is just we didn't know, or we didn't use the data in that way. And then the third one down there is I'm a customer of a company, and I use product 1, and I'm receiving information on how to use product 2. It's companies just not segmenting their existing customer base. And while it's no big deal, it's just another ignored email. It trains them to ignore your emails as well as makes them wonder. I was on a pricing page the other day trying to get pricing for a SMS platform for one of my clients, and I chatted with the pricing people, or I chatted through their chat widget. I had a question. I had a legit question because I needed to get started on this and make the purchase. And what did the chat people send me something back that said, please review our options on our pricing page. And they sent me the link to the pricing page that I was on when I chatted with them. That is a segmentation fail. It's a lead intelligence fail, but they didn't know that I fell into the bucket of, and where I was in the process.
Yeah, I think it's so important to really, make sure you're understanding where your marketing is going and making sure you understand who your ideal customer is, right? So understanding, who you're marketing to by their demographics, their age, their gender, talking to, the income level that you're targeting, and making sure that you're super targeted about it. If your marketing is very just general, you may want to take a second look at it, because oftentimes when we see revenue issues, it comes back to not just a sales performance thing or a marketing performance thing. It may just be like product market fit. Maybe you haven't really honed in your ideal customers as much as you could have. I know from starting my own company, it's a lot of iterations go into, what that looks like. And demographics is a key component to segmentation. Obviously, geographic areas. If you're serving a global versus national, you're going to have a different approach. You're going to have to really tailor your messages to APAC, EMEA, the Americas, et cetera. And then looking at behavioral patterns within those sections, right? How are purchases being handled? Are they different? Is the usage? If you have a product that you're selling or a managed service, you should be able to pull some data on the actual utilization. When are users spending the most time? Which areas of your solution are users finding the most value and putting the most utilization into those things? And then, of course, the psychographics, the value of your customer. What are they? What are their attitudes? What are their allegiances, maybe within the marketplace, and things like that, so that you can really make sure that you have your partnerships aligned. You can make sure that all of your messaging is really in tune with what they're looking for. And this just talks about a little bit more about what we've talked about already. The right customer, the right message, the right time. It really comes down to all three of those things, so that you can make sure that you're getting the customers that will stay with you long term, that you are focusing your business energy and efforts and business development and customer retention in the right areas, right? Because you don't want to be trying to serve people that just are not the right fit.
All right. So why does it matter? And so we're kind of taking from hitting on the head with the fact that segmentation is something that you need to have at least started on. You don't need to have micro segmentation, but making sure that the wrong messages, irrelevant messages aren't going to people in the process. But so why does it matter? Because look at different points in your customer journey. I don't want to scroll back up to the customer journey map because you get vertigo with all the scrolling. But think about your customer journey map, from awareness to consideration to purchase. They're feeling different things at different points. What are the questions that they have at different points in the process? What information would be helpful to them at different points in their customer journey? What are their fears? What are their priorities? A lot of it goes to mindset, but mindset is the foundation for segmentation. What are they thinking right now? What do they need right now? You want to get them that right information or that right message at the right time based on what they're experiencing.
These are some examples of ways to create calls to action within your messages, right? Because if you have a message going out, but you have no way to really engage your your buyer, your customer, that can be an issue because you won't be able to, actually have that kind of automated more. So this is one example of, having go to call to action of a discount, entering your email so that you can really engage with them. And if you go to the next couple of slides, there's a couple more examples. I think education is a great way to engage, obviously. So, free training webinars or free recordings, things like that, where you're having them enter a name and an email. And that if you are like a product-led company, I've been working with a few that are trying to really find the best way to engage, and having the different levels in a product-led approach can be very, very effective, where it's very low barrier to entry, maybe even $0 option, right? This particular example is less than $10, but having a basic, and as you go up from there, so that way you can really add feature sets and additional functionality or services, and really understand which ones are resonating. And because then that way you can adjust as necessary, right? So starting off with one iteration and then adjusting as needed is really a nice way of doing it.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because when people think about segmentation, a lot of times they think of marketing and sales touches, messaging, content, marketing offers, resources, but you can use segmentation in serving up the right product to the right person at the right time as well.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get down into kind of the tactical takeaways here. So best practices. When you're creating your segments, you need a clean enough lead management structure underneath to create reusable buckets that you trust, reusable buckets of segments. Buckets is the same thing as segments. It's just, I picture them as buckets. You don't want to have to go into a campaign and reinvent the segment that you're going to send this campaign to. Who your marketing list is, how your marketing list is segmented, your existing customers, your past customers. So all of the different segments you want to create and name in a very reusable way in your system, because it can add weeks to a campaign if you need to go clean up your data and create those segments from scratch. Mm-hmm. Please don't over-engineer your data. And what I mean by this is you can get very excited and granular with segmentation. And that means you can be like, all right, I want to know I want to know my client's birthday. Okay, now I want to know where they spent their last birthday and who they spend their birthday with. For every data point that you're going to segment by, somebody needs to maintain that. It's a big pitfall that people encounter. And they say, we want our salespeople, our marketing people to capture all of this information with everybody that they talk to. And that takes time. And inevitably, the more that manual work that you need somebody to do, people are going to do less and less of it. And so you're going to end up with junky data anyway. That goes to the next point. Your segmentation doesn't work unless people are using your lead management system and your CRM and your sales tools. So CRM adoption is key because you need your sales team or your customer service team using a system that is clear enough and simple enough that they can adopt and stick to and maintain their data over time. Because if they're not maintaining your data, you can't segment from a sales, marketing, reporting, or automation perspective with any degree of confidence. Amy mentioned it earlier. A lot of times people think of segmentation as just the data that, the demographic data about a company or about a contact. I don't want you to forget about behavioral segmentation. And this is where if somebody comes to your pricing page, that tells you something about them, that you can put them in a certain bucket, in a certain layer, and you can segment based on, all right, if they've been to your pricing page twice in the past 2 days, that puts them in XYZ segment, and we want to serve them this data at this time to try to get them to move down the sales funnel. And you're going to get to the point when you start doing behavioral segmentation where you have too many data points to use everything in a segment. So you're going to need to move to lead scoring, and lead scoring is a way to capture dozens of data points, sometimes more, into one score And so I recommend combining lead scoring with traditional segmentation. It doesn't replace traditional segmentation, but when you're talking about behaviors, emails opened, web pages visits, things that they've downloaded, conversations with sales teams, have they replied to your sales team? Have they gotten to this point in the sales process? All of that needs to be into a lead scoring model that's maintained that's going to complement your segments and just make your outreach smarter. All right, next we're going to talk about our fourth strategy, which is automation. And this is, the whole idea here is to create standout customer experiences with less work. We want to arm you guys with robots to create outstanding customer experiences. But this, we just talked about this, but I need to put this warning in here. This only works if you have confidence in your data. You can't automate things if you don't trust your data. And that's the number one reason people don't leverage the automation tools that they've bought, is they either don't have clean data, or when they clean it, they don't have the systems for their team to maintain it. So confidence in your data depends on simple processes that people can adopt. Your sales team, your customer service team, your marketing team. So that's, hopefully it's not an immediate roadblock for you guys on the call, but just know that you can't get excited about automation if you can't trust your data. So I think about automation as an iceberg, where the part that's exposed to the customer service team or the sales team is going to be very small. But then there's going to be a ton of automation below the surface that makes it so that their process is very simple. It makes it so your data stays clean on its own. It makes it so they're super productive and efficient. So know that this iceberg method, we don't want to be extra vigilant. You do want to be extra vigilant to make sure the process is as simple as possible for the people who need to touch your CRM system or your marketing systems. And then behind the scenes, you're going to use automation to make sure that it stays simple for people. So it's two parts of automation and CRM adoption that people don't talk about a lot. All right, so types of customer experience automation. The one that I put first is this internal efficiency and data hygiene. We are so big on, your customer experience system doesn't work, especially the automation, if your data is not clean. So, a lot of people, when they think about automation, they think of prospect-facing touches or post-sale processes, drip campaigns, and we automated this email going out, and we automated this. What we're looking at here's none of that works if you don't use automation to keep your data clean and make your team super efficient so that they can follow your process. That's number one. Number two, the prospect-facing touches. These are, this is sales outreach, this is marketing outreach. Post-sales process is getting everybody to play from the same playbook during the handoff process and the fulfillment and delivery process of your product or service. And you can do that through automation. And then notifications and accountability, which I'm going to get to right now. So number one, we talked about automating lead management. Number two, behavioral automation. We brought up that example of someone comes to your pricing page twice in 2 days, and they're going to get a touch from you that looks like it came from the sales team, with an opportunity, with a discount or with an opportunity to get a assessment call, something of value. Then we have the post-sale process. Onboarding is such a great example. You can automate that onboarding process. Even if there are manual touches, you can say, all right, if this type of deal closed, then, and when it moves to the next stage, shoot off this task to our legal compliance team to review this, shoot off this task to our customer outreach team to mail them the onboarding packet. So there's automation, you can use automation to that entire onboarding process, even if there are manual steps, and it gets everybody from playing from the same playbook and off spreadsheets and sticky notes. Notifications and accountability. If a task is past due or a next action in your CRM is past due, you can use automation to keep the sales team or customer service team following the process. They don't like being micromanaged. Sales managers don't like hovering over people. So you can use the system to notify somebody to stay on track. You can also use automation when a lead they've been working comes back to the website and starts bouncing around again. Someone they haven't heard from, been trying to connect to for weeks, they can get, the sales rep can get notified, so they can make a call and say, hey, I've been meaning to connect with you. And they say, what a coincidence. I was just on your website. And the salesperson says, oh my goodness, that is a coincidence, knowing full well that they got alerted that they were on your website. That's automation in action. All right. When to use automation? When you have a standard process, when you have repeatable touches, when there's common scenarios. One of the exercises we go through with companies is, all right, what are the common scenarios that you have at each stage in the sales process? Because that's when you can leverage automation. And when you have clean segmentation, this person needs to get this touch at this time every time. When there's too much nuance, when it's like, well, half the time, depending on this, if they said this word in the demo, then we don't want to send them this type of follow-up. That's not a good example. That's not a good use of automation. When not to use automation is the flip side of that. When you have one-off steps in a process, something you don't do very often. When you have highly custom messaging, when let's say a demo follow-up. We don't often automate a demo follow-up because so much happened in that demo meeting that you're going to get that context and you're going to want to give them some specifics based on their specific buying process and where they are. When your data is not clean and you can't rely on it, stay away from too much automation because it's going to blow up in your face. And don't use automation to overtly fake the personalization of something. People can sniff that out a mile away. You see it a lot right now on LinkedIn, and it doesn't work like it used to.
I'm going to write a LinkedIn book of all the bad automated messages. It's getting pretty bad.
I hope you do.
So, okay, so we just have a couple of minutes. I want to be really respectful of everybody's time here. I do have a guide that I'll send out. Josh, we can forward to the next slide, but using data for really optimizing your decisions is huge, right? Salesforce, everybody knows Salesforce, probably used it. They've done a lot of studies and they've shown that really segmenting marketing has really been shown to generate an average of a 760% increase in revenue. And that shouldn't come to any surprise. I mean, just staying really focused on the right message at the right time is really huge in the bottom line. We can skip ahead here because I'm in essence of time. Serving your customers is so important. Survey them often. I do this even as a small business owner. Surveying my customers from the first customer I ever had, I surveyed them. And I surveyed them in many different ways. It's not just gathering their, 5 stars, although that's important and that's helpful, but really asking for feedback. What can we do better? How was your experience with X, Y, or Z? Asking them about market research. What are they seeing in the marketplace? And giving them a chance to engage with you in these different formats is so important. And ultimately, we want to get to repeatable, scalable, and profitable numbers, right? So let's look at a couple of KPIs that you can use in your own business. And I will also send you a guided follow-up where you can get into this more. But understanding your customer lifetime value is really important. And it's really, looking at your customer value over the average lifespan that customer is with you. And that lifetime value should be, much larger. It should be 3 times your actual customer acquisition cost. And you want to recover your customer acquisition costs within like a 12 to 18 months period. So that's a good way to look at it when you're looking at, customer acquisition costs, how much dollars have we really spent from sales, anything in marketing, operations, and you might need to, do this like for each one of offerings that you have. But really looking at what is that true dollar amount, because you'd be surprised with as many subscriptions as we all use in our businesses, how much that really adds up, let alone the pure time and effort behind the delivery of your service. Your customer acquisition should be much lower than your lifetime value. We kind of talked about that. And then looking at churn, that is so important when you're looking at the number of customers that you have. And looking at a time period, how many of them actually stayed with you or how many left. And when you look at your desirable lifetime value to churn ratio, it should be at least a 3-to-1, 4-to-1's great, 5-to-1's great. Some SaaS companies I've read as much as like 20-to-1. When you start looking at like these huge numbers, and it's like, okay, then you better be reinvesting back into your business to keep ramping it up, right? But those are healthy numbers to look at.
Yep.
And so we'll send you a guide with more of those numbers if you are a SaaS business or if you are looking at repeatable, profitable, scalable numbers. We can send you that and follow up.
All right, and that guide is really it's really a good guide. So I believe that brings us to the conclusion of today's discussion. And I want to thank you, Amy, for being part of this. I want to thank everybody for their questions and participation. We're going to send you this recording, these slides, in kind of a bundle with some additional resources as well.
And thank you, Josh, for having me on.
Yep, thank you. And we look forward to seeing everybody on the next web class that we teach together. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.